Hey friends, welcome back to the Meditation School podcast. And in this episode, I want to dive into 3 books that I absolutely love when it comes to meditation that have really helped me on my path and that I use to help guide my students with different tools and strategies for when they start meditating. Before we get into the books, I want to mention I put in the show notes here a link to my free trainings page. So I've got webinars on all sorts of topics, from meditating during crisis to anxiety, loneliness, and beyond. And you just have to get on the page and choose what you want to meditate to. So that's in the link in the show notes. If you're listening on Insight Timer, there are no show notes, but you'll find it. So let's jump right into the books that I absolutely love, and let's start with one of my favorites of all time, which is The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I've mentioned in previous episodes about the power of now. It totally changed my life, and this one is just as good. And if you're watching this episode, I'm just showing the books on camera. If you're not, there's a link to each book in the show notes again. They shouldn't be too hard to find. What I absolutely love about this book is the very first page. And Eckhart takes us back 100 plus million years to when possibly the first ever flower bloomed on Earth. And before there were flowers, there were plants, just plants. And then he surmises that one day a flower bloomed, but it was fragile and then it died. But at a certain point, a threshold was crossed and then flowers bloomed all over the world. Fast forward to human beings. The flower maybe was one of the first items from nature we used without a utilitarian purpose, without a survival purpose. Maybe we used flowers for art and for beauty, for sensuality. And he shares stories about how Jesus taught using a flower and how the Buddha did. I really love the story about the Buddha using a flower during what they called his silent sermon, where he just stared at this flower, didn't say a word. And the story goes that only one monk understood the teachings. And that monk passed those teachings down. 28 generations later, this thing called Zen was born. Out of the Buddha, not talking, staring at a flower, Zen was born. That's such a beautiful story to me. And so I love this book, A New Earth, and Eckhart goes into more of the state of humanity and the human ego and the pain body, human pain and suffering. And it's just a great addition to his first book if you haven't read it. This book is kind of old, both of his are. So if you've been in the meditation space for a while, you've read it most likely. But we're just reviewing, and if you haven't, give it a shot. The second book that I really enjoy is Wake Up to Your Life. And this one is by Ken MacLeod. Or I'm saying it wrong, Ken MacLeod. I'm not quite sure. I'm holding this one up too. This book I found when I was 17 really made a difference in my life. And for the last 2 years, I've been looking for this book and I couldn't remember the title. I kept just thinking it was called Waking Up, which is a podcast by Sam Harris and an app. And I couldn't find it on Amazon or anywhere. I rented this house in Boulder and the guy had it right on his bookshelf. And I was so happy when I found it. One of the things I love about this book is the deep teaching into Buddhism and into the kind of getting into the real details of the Buddhist tradition and teachings from a very meditative perspective. And in particular, I love how he talks about the 3 forms of suffering that we experience in life, and how Buddha's main teaching was recognizing suffering and then recognizing you don't have to suffer. You can wake up out of suffering. And that's what the 4 Noble Truths are about, and the Eightfold Path and beyond. And he says that there are 3 types of suffering. So one type comes from pain, physical or emotional. Another comes from the experience of change, of everything changing, of us losing ultimately everything in life, because at a certain point, everything dies, falls away, or changes. And the third is from Existence Itself, which is a little bit more nebulous or vague, but I think we all from time to time have this existential, like, empty feeling. Am I alone? What is this about? Where am I? I'm on some random planet floating in the cosmos. No one knows why we're here. Someone gave me a name, but really nobody knows who I am. I don't know who I am. And as funny as that is, it can also cause some existential dread. I remember when I used to teach every semester at Cornell. I used to teach meditation there to the staff and faculty, and sometimes the students, until COVID started. And one time, one of the administrators raised her hand and she said, "You know what really stresses me out? The idea of existence," something like that, and death, I think it was. And just a very deep existential energy that she was dealing with, beyond what most people were saying was work, money, family. She was like, death, existence is what gets me. I think that this book does a great job of addressing some of the deepest human conditions that we all are struggling with, and he gives some great tools and meditations to work with them. And then the third book that I really love, I would say this is probably the easiest read out of the three, which is, and I feel like I always say her name wrong, but Pema Chodron, the female Buddhist monk, holding it up to the camera, but the light is too bright, so I don't think you could see it if you're watching this. Lovely book. It's called How to Meditate. Simple. It seems like it's actually just her talking, put into taken into a transcript, transcribed and put into a book. And she just gives really gentle, compassionate, direct teachings of how to sit and how to meditate. Everything from just settling into a space when you close your eyes, to learning how to do things like mental noting. And I think it's just a really great guide, whether you're a beginner or advanced meditator, to read. And the reading of the book itself is meditative. So like as you're reading it, you can almost feel yourself dropping into the moment and meditating. Pema has this beautiful just softness about her and her teaching, and I love it. If you've listened to me before, you know I always quote her when she says, "Nothing goes away until it teaches us what we need to know." And I love that teaching. I love her work. So those are the three books for today. I could probably pick a few dozen more. Maybe in the future I'll do some more episodes on some books I really like. Just to reiterate them, it's A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, Wake Up to Your Life by Ken McLeod, and How to Meditate by Pema Chodron. Beautiful books. Maybe one of them will inspire you, or maybe you have different taste. All good. Thank you for listening, watching, being here with me. Enjoy yourself, and I will see you in the next one. See you soon.